This is the fifth Balena Meetup. Today we want to, talking about balenaHub applications that we have. Some of the most popular that we have these days. It's Balena app from Volkov Labs. Yeah, we are going to talk about these after the presentation. We want to talk about how Grafana is a really interesting tool to use on IoT embedded devices in the edge and IoT. And this application is just a perfect example. And if we are lucky and Alex arrive on time at home, he will do the second presentation tonight or today about Ming, which is an interesting concept that he created with a friend. I'm not sure if he's the inventor of this concept or not, but we will learn more about that in some minutes. By the way, my name is Mark Pose. I'm developer advocate at Balena. I'm happy to help you on the forums, by email, or on Twitter. I know, Lizzie, if you want to introduce yourself before we start.
Lizzie, I'm working marketing and outreach and communications at Balena as well. So it's nice to see everyone. And I guess we will just hand straight over to Mikhail to tell us all about Grafana. You've probably seen him all over our blog and newsletter recently.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
I have so many things. Okay, have to go, and we have to go. Okay, let's talk about Grafana. And instead of slides this time, I use Grafana as well for my presentation. As you can see, and Grafana is kind of, my name is Mikhail Volkov. Yes, I'm CEO and founder at Volkov Labs. And what we do at Volkov Labs, we create and use Grafana as a platform to create modern applications, which do a little bit more than just displaying various data. And we have interesting plugins I want to show today. And one of them is this balena application plugin, which we created for one of our clients, the Thea Scientific. We are working together on a very interesting project. And I will show the demonstration of this project as well, because it's very interesting. It's run on Balena, and it shows you the full scale of application you can run with Balena and Grafana together. So let's start with why. And I'm going to talk about why Grafana and why Balena, and then we are moving to what. I'm going to talk about Balena application based on Grafana. About Theoscope, I will show the application itself, and I'm going to talk about Volkov Labs plugins and how you can integrate them in your IoT devices. Okay, let's start about this Grafana. So Grafana is its open observability platform. It has different plugins, and it's everybody community use it for metrics, for logs, for traces, and there are a lot of different projects in balenaHub registered already, which use Prometheus with Grafana or different or various other data sources, which can take the data from the data source, from databases, and visualize them using very different various panels on the Grafana dashboard. And you can create different dashboards. As you can see in my presentation, I use different dashboards, and I will be moving between each of them. And dashboard, it's based on the panels. As you can see, this is one panel, another panel, and it's based on different roles. Why we love Grafana? Because it's open observability platform, and because of the community. Grafana community is great. There are so many enthusiasts and companies working together to build the ecosystem of different plugins. And what is plugins? Plugins, it's additional functionality based by community, by Grafana itself, and various partners. And there are three different kinds of plugins. One of them is a panel, data sources, and application plugins. Panels, as you can see, it's a visualization part of the Grafana. In my cases, I'm using base64 panel, which we created a long time ago. And it just, if you can view it and you can edit, and it has different permissions. Depends on the permission, you can do different tasks. And if I edit on any panel, you can see all the list of the panels you can use in Grafana. And as I mentioned before, I use the base64 image video panel, and I just display from a static data source my image in base64 format. And this is how this presentation is done. So panel is the basic visualization component, and there are various different panels. There are 200 panels, It's created by community, as I said, in Grafana, and they provide you different functionality. The data source, it is a kind of plugin which can interact with your database or different cloud data sources, and then you can display them with your panel. An application, it is something, it's a special plugin which combines panel and data sources together and allow you to build this application. And Balena application I'm going to talk next is this kind of combination of different panels we use to manage the services, the Docker containers on the Balena device, and the data source which interact with the supervisor, which I'm going to mention next. So this is Grafana. It's open observability platform. It has a great community and it has various plugins, and Balena application is one of them. Let's go back to the main one. Now let's talk about Balena. Balena is for fleet owners, and everybody has their own why, and everybody's here, right, because they love Balena, and we love it as well. And another why Balena is because it has a balenaHub, which makes life easier for everyone working with IoT and edge devices. You can easily download with predefined containers, applications, which was recently introduced, deploy it on your fleet of devices, and it's easy, you're good to go. One of the features while we love Grafana is Balena as well. It's a Balena Cloud that we started with 1-2 fleets before working with different clients, and now we have multiple of them, and it's easy to manage and add new devices to it. So Balena Cloud is a container-based platform for deploying IoT devices, right? There is a very important feature of the Balena. It's a supervisor. Balena supervisor, it's a Balena agent that run on the device. Balena supervisor has an API, and interacting with this API, this is how you actually, if you know how Balena dashboard looks like, it's actually interacting with the supervisor API on your device, communicating with it, and then this is the way how you restart different services on devices and get the measurements from it as well. So supervisor, I'm going to show how you can actually interact with it from the Grafana. And there is the version management. It's so easy to do the version management on Balena. You just create your Grafana containers, and we use Google, we use GitHub container repository to manage all our containers. Then we create a release, push it to the Balena fleet, and it's uploading, downloading containers, images, and you have your new version of your application in no time. And this is why we love Balena and support it. So this was why Grafana and Balena. Now let's take a look at the Balena application. And for that, I want to show you the live demo of it. So this is the Balena application plugin. As I said, it's interacting with the supervisor and using the standard panel. This is the logs panel, this is a standard stat panel, and we have a custom services panel, which allow you to see the logs, what is happening with the device. And with Balena dashboards, my presentation is run on my Raspberry Pi device. You can see the logs in real time, and you don't need to connect to the Balena cloud because everything here happening locally. And in some cases, you don't have an access to Balena cloud working in network constrained environment. So this kind of a way you can see what's happening without Balena cloud, right? But to give the end user access actually and see the logs. Then you can see the update. If there is a new release coming, you can see if it's downloaded, if it's a pending or something failed during this release. And this is how your end users can monitor the new release. If they have a device not always connected to the internet and with intermediate with the internet connection intermittent, right? When they connect on their own time, they can connect it. I have a chat message. Okay, yes, you can.
Oh, sorry, it was me asking the people if they had any question, but to leave it on the chat. Sorry for that.
Okay, no worries. So this is the update, so you can monitor the process. And I have two containers running on my Raspberry Pi. It's Grafana, and there is an Nginx. It has an ID, and you can see the status of it. As many containers as you will have, you will see in this panel, and you can start, pause, stop, and restart it as well, each one by one, or restart all services at the same time. Also, you can see the information about the images, what is the status, and see the information about the device itself. Also, there is a target state, which is all information about the device. And you can see that in this special JSON format. So if there is some parameters you want to know if it was uploaded set correctly, you can see it on the target state here in this menu. So, and this is Balena application. As you can see, there is also every dashboard has dashboard variables. And in this case, we have a supervisor called API. And this is how we know to which device we connect to. We can connect to this particular device I'm running on, or it can be connected to the device next to it, or any device in the network. And as easy as getting access to one device on one dashboard, you can actually see update status or services panel for all of them, 3, 4, as many as you want, and put them on this dashboard, just align the way you wanted it. The way how you do that, you'd go to into the configuration. I have 2 data source configured right now. One of them is API. This is Balena Supervisor, and it's a part of this Balena application. And there is a static data source as well, which I use for my images. What you do with this API, you just provide API URL where your supervisor is running. If you have a supervisor running on a separate host, there is a firewall running as well on the host itself on different device. So you have to change the firewall rules so this device can access supervisor on different device, but it's possible to connect them together. And there is the API key, which you can get in the Balena dashboard, or you can get it in environment variable on the device itself. You provide this API key, URL, and then you can connect to the device. And this was the Balena application live demo. So, I mean, you can use it. We have a Balena application published in a balenaHub. Also, we have it published in GitHub repository as a Docker image, which you can easily incorporate into any of your application. I just want to demonstrate how we incorporate it in Theascope. It's a project which we are working on with Thea Scientific. And in many cases, as I mentioned before, you use Grafana just to visualize data from different data sources. But Theascope and the Thea Scientific, we created this special Grafana interface, which can allow you to interact with your application with the API. So on this dashboard, and it's a separate device, it's running on JSON Javier. You can, for example, set the time to the time synchronization with the different buttons. You can do model management and decide what you want to do with models, where do you want to run it, what kind of version is it, and you can start different various models as well. It's all in the same Grafana interface using the API. You can run different job management, and you have a special calendar panel which allows you to see the results. And as an example how it all works together, and there is another panel which actually shows you the device name and version information directly from environment variables from a Balena device. It have all the applications that have a special menu, and you can see, and it's where it's the way how you access different dashboards directly, and the system it's a one which provides you access to the Balena application with all the containers, IP address, and everything together. So this is for the end users. They can actually run the application, see what's happening with the application, and in real time monitor if something is wrong with the application. And as example of what you can do with Grafana, this is a wrong model. I'm using this one model which is run the acquisition on GPU, and I run it on a separate device. So you can actually see, and it's doing the acquisition of the Tokyo live cam on the live cam, and it's real time doing machine learning. And you can, on a different device, I choose the acquisition, what I want to learn from where. And in Vision panel, you can actually see what's happening, what this device is learning, and this is the live camera feed, which you can, and it's as easy as that, you can incorporate it in your own application. At the same time, using standard Grafana panels, I can see the model latency, frame rates, feature counts, and the classes, all in real time. And it was a demonstration of the scope with the scientific. This is the way how you can incorporate it, and to show you that Grafana can do more than just visualize the data. Also, there was the interesting component, the feedback. So this is a very interesting feature, which we see a lot of feedback from the community. When you cannot, and I mean, we use it here for the feedback, but using the data manipulation panel, you can actually on the device using Grafana, you can use the API post request to actually update the configuration of your device, insert data in the database, and if you use it in production environment, you can configure and change the updates of any production device it's your IT device connected to, any production use case. And let's talk about a little bit more about Volkov Labs plugins as well. When we prepared this presentation, we look into all our plugins portfolio and we see which one we can use for IoT devices. As we mentioned before, Balena application plugin, it's a part of the management, and you can use it with Balena application. But at the same time, we have different plugins for visualization, which you can incorporate in your workflow, and for configuration. As I mentioned, there is a data manipulation plugin, environment data source, which will allow you to get all the environment data sources from the application, from the Balena, and which you can configure in Balena dashboard. And for visualization, as I showed, you can use Apache eCharts, which is a very modern charting library, and it allows you to do so many different things. I have another window here about Apache eCharts. For example, you can do different 3D visualization from your production use cases. You can do different tree maps, different graphs. So anything radar as well, and geomap locations. Different one of you from you can read the data from your sensor and display it directly on your Grafana dashboard. Also, data manipulation, I talk about it, that it's easy to configure any device, environment data source. The device can understand where it is, what it should be doing. With Base64, you can get any live feed from your IoT device, video and audio as well. And this is our plugins. And of course, the Balena application plugin, it has this custom Docker build, which you can easily incorporate in your workflow, as I said. And that's it.
Oh, wow, this is awesome. Actually, there is a comment from Anil that says this is super cool on the chat.
Thank you.
But how can I deploy this on my fleet? Can you show us this? Maybe.
Yes, you go to balenaHub. I choose the application, and there is the Balena application. So you click on it, and you click deploy, right? And then it will go to your Balena dashboard. You choose the parameters like any other Balena application plugin, and you will have Grafana application and Nginx in front of it. And Nginx in front of it will provide the access to the same application I have on my Raspberry Pi.
So can you show, or what containers or services you need to add on your fleet, on the Docker Compose, Nginx and Grafana, or just Grafana?
It's just a Grafana. Let me show it to you. If we go to, we have a GitHub with Balena application, and we have this Docker Compose. So this is how it looks like, and the way how it looks on balenaHub. You have a Grafana. This is our image, which we build ourselves, and we run it in network mode host. We just start. We provide the label, Supervisor API, which is required you to expose to the environment variables of the supervisor, and we just create one volume. And Grafana normally it runs on port 3000. So to expose it to the port, and you can access it locally at the port 3000. To access it from outside, because Balena Cloud provide you access to port 80, we use Nginx. At the same time, we use Nginx with the special headers, which is make it more secure. And for Grafana, you can use just a regular Grafana container. You can just base it from Grafana as well. The way how we did it, you can customize Grafana behavior in interface using environment variables. And we provided that we want to have this special dashboard with supervisor JSON, which is predefined as a part of the application. We provide different parameters for to compress, use the light theme, and Grafana actually has a dark theme as well, which a lot of people likes. And we provide different customization how it should look like. So for your better customer experience and yours, you can do whatever you want with it, right? There are different features, alerts you can predefine in different modes, and what kind of plugins you want to run as well as out of the box solution. So this is our image, but you're welcome to create anything you want out of it. And you're welcome to fork repository, see how we all done. Also, there is the data sources for Grafana, which you can predefine yourself. It's all provisioned using YAML files. And any dashboard you're working with, you can provision it as well. So when we deliver the application to the customer, it's actually already provisioned. It's the full solution.
Okay, we have a couple of questions on the chat. Nahal and Anil maybe are asking similar questions. Can it be hosted remotely? And how can we connect it to our fleet?
Yes, I mean, it can be locally, it can be remotely, right? So you can access it as any other device, and you can connect it using balenaHub. As I said, you go to the device, you deploy it to your hub, to the particular as a separate fleet, or in your Docker Compose file, as I showed here. You can just use
2 containers.
Yeah, you can just use 2 containers. If you have Nginx already, you can configure it so how you do the routes. Let me show you. If you have Nginx already as a part of your application, you go to default configuration and you provide your location, right? The way how you go to Grafana. But normally you just need 1 Grafana container. And as I mentioned before, you can specify everything you want as in environment variables, what kind of plugins you want, and provision it from your files.
Then Anil is asking, is this available today from any major cloud providers, or it must be used from balenaHub? Yeah, well, I don't think this is, well, probably this can run on a to monitor a cloud solution, but this is ready to monitor an edge device, right?
Create a engine using AKS and then use balenaHub. I mean, it's a private plugin right now. It's not available in Grafana repository, but it's possible to add it to Grafana repository if with the specific balena Grafana partnerships, right? But you can build it yourself. With the major providers like AWS, they choose and pick what kind of plugins they have available on their platforms. So if you use a Grafana on AWS, I'm not sure what you're talking about with major cloud providers, because AWS has their own Grafana offering, and it has this limited number of plugins. But if you just use AWS or cloud or Google Cloud or any of them, and you use an instance, you just can install Grafana there yourself and have any applications install it as well, right? Or you can use a Docker as well and host this application in Docker and connect to your balenaHub devices. Yeah, to Balena Cloud device. Is it answered the question?
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think get knowledge in Russian, or I don't know. More questions for Mikhail.
It's not because we're using this Balena application in a network constrained environment. So we are working primarily right now with the supervisor, but we can actually connect it to the Balena Cloud as well, right? Which has an API. And right now the metrics, they are not exposed locally on a supervisor. There is the way it works right now. The device itself, it's pushing the metrics to the cloud, but it's not exposing it locally, unfortunately. It's maybe something we can work with the Balena team to expose them locally, right? Because it's should be easy to do. Or we have to connect, and we're going to connect to the Balena Cloud API if there will be interest from the community. So you can actually, with the Grafana, you can use Balena dashboard, or you can use Grafana dashboards just to manage your fleets. That's possible as well. There is another interesting question. Can we actually make it work with Open Balena? And it is something we are going to look for.
Yeah, it might be possible. Absolutely. Yeah, we have to do a meetup about Open Balena at some point. But yeah, I mean, this is at the end running on the device, right? So, but yeah, it's a good topic. Thank you very much, Mikhail. This is a great presentation. So now we saw like, so why I choose this order is because now we saw like, what can you like master on Grafana. Now, if you don't know what is Grafana, now we are going to have Alex explaining the first step that you can take, right, to reach where Mikhail reached. So, Alex, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I don't know if we'll reach those heights, but you know, we can talk about some interesting things. You can hear me okay, then that's great.
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
So firstly, apologies, particularly to you, Mikhail, because I was really looking forward to listening to you, and I've just this minute walked in from a train journey from a client, so which was delayed. So apologies for that, and if I sort of say anything that's replicating what you've already said, apologies for that too. I doubt I will, because this is all very basic stuff. Ming, then, I guess, shall I begin, Mark? How long am I talking for?
All yours, Alex.
Okay. Well, so a little bit about myself, firstly. So I've been working in embedded systems, IoT, for about 25 years. We're based up here in cloudy Liverpool in the northwest of England. And we do all sorts of stuff, design and manufacture of hardware, software integration. And we love Balena because one of the big problems we've always had is over-the-air updates to devices in the field, which is, so it's fantastic when that came along and we could do that. Dockerization, remote access, all that really cool stuff. So we use Balena for a lot of the projects that we look at, do a lot of fun stuff. This particular project, Ming, is sort of kind of an itch that we wanted to scratch, and we just started sort of doing things, and it took us where it did. So I'm not for a moment suggesting that this is the be all and end all and the answer, but it's a way of doing things. It's basically, we kind of think about it like a lamp stack for the Internet of Things. If I don't know what age groups we have here, but if you are old enough to remember Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, that was LAMP, and that was one of the sort of enablers that let people get going doing somewhat dynamic websites back in the very, very old days. I mean, what are we on now? Web 7, Web 8? I don't know. I can't remember. So Ming, what is it? Well, some of the things that we do here, which is probably very much at the moment, is we've been worrying for years in this co-location workspace I'm in, does Liverpool, about the energy usage, because we've got a lot of machines, we've got laser cutters, 3D printers, stuff like that. And we're quite interested in what energy is being used where. So being geeks, we got some bits of kit, we started playing with them. This is one of them, which you might have seen, you might know. That's a little smart plug. This essentially has got a switch on the side. You can turn the power on and off. But the nice thing about it is it also does current sensing. So you can see, voltage, current, power, what's being used by whatever you plug into that thing, and also turn it on and off remotely. And inside it, it's got one of these awesome espressive chips, the ESP8266, which we love. Really, really cool. Cheap as chips, quite literally. Lovely software environment to work with, ESP SDK, or you can use Arduino. And it's fantastic. Loads of stuff you can do with that. So they have ESP8266. They have more powerful stuff, ESP32. If you're into IoT sensors and controllers, you've not worked with that, can't recommend it highly enough. They're great. A few dollars, you can get hold of one of these things. So we got this, and it comes with some Chinese firmware on it, which we immediately got rid of. And we put some open source firmware on, of course, because that's what you do. And we had a look at something which I know Mark knows all about called eSperner, which is really cool. And that's a kind of an all-in home automation, power monitoring and control package, open source again. Really like that. We moved on to a similar sort of type of package called Tasmota. And that's what we're working with at the moment. Now, can I share my screen, Mark, and put some stuff up?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, of course.
Have I got the...
Can you see share screen button or not?
I can indeed. So let me try that now.
I don't know. Let me try.
Okay, built-in display.
Okay.
Can you
Yes.
see that?
We see the dynamic devices.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's the obligatory plug for my business, which is dynamicdevices.co.uk. A lot of fluff on there, really. We put a bit of news on the stuff that we get up to. Probably much more interesting for the purposes of this chat is we try and put a lot of what we do on GitHub Dynamic Devices. And if you're interested in Ming, you'll find all of the bits and pieces that we've been working on and off in this GitHub repo. And essentially, it's a balena containerized set of components for this Ming stack, which consists of, as it says here, Mosquito, InfluxDB, Node-RED, and Grafana. And I'm gonna come back around and explain what I mean by that. You know, I'm sure many of you know all about these components, and I hope that I'm not going to bore you to tears, but bear with me. So we use Mosquito for data transport, for assured delivery of messages from our IoT sensors, in this case, our power measurements. We then needed to store that somewhere. And in modern day, we have SQL databases we've all worked with for years and years and years. But now that we're talking about data points for sensors, it's more interesting to work with these time series databases. And InfluxDB is an open source time series database. So we thought that'd be kind of cool to play with and look at. Then we need to do a bit of business logic. We need to do some data transformation. We need to move data around. We want to do that in a really easy way because, you know, that's the kind of people we are. We're quite lazy geeks. And instead of having to code stuff up all over the place, Node-RED is this lovely, lovely graphical wiring environment where you just put a node here and a node here and you wire them and the data goes between the two of them. And it's literally that easy. So we love Node-RED. We use it for loads and loads of stuff. Lots of people use it commercially now, I think, as well. And of course, then we wanted to see what we were doing. And that's where we began to use Grafana for some data visualization. And I'll say to you now that I'm more of a jack of all trades than anything. So I'm not going to be able to answer any great in-depth questions on Grafana. You've got the guy here for that, I'm sure. I might be able to help a little bit with MQTT and Mosquito because I've done a fair bit of that over the years. And as I say, we love Node-RED. So then moving on to Tasmota. This is the web server that's running on this ESP device here now. And I can probably prove that to you because if I show you, there's a little like blue light on the end there, yeah. Now, if I toggle the toggle button, it goes off. Look at that. So, you know, I'm not lying to you. This is actually like real live. Could all go horribly wrong and probably will, given that I've only just set all this stuff up after getting off on the train. So, you know, wish me luck, please. So I can turn the power on and off, and you can see that it's measuring in sort of real time here, and it's showing me that the voltage here in the UK is about 240 volts, give or take. Nothing plugged in, no current sensing, and all the other bits and pieces that electronic people know about. I'll just whiz through this a little bit because I love this stuff. You know, it's really, really interesting. Again, open source, take it, do what you will with it. Loads of configuration. It's on the Wi-Fi here locally. It's got an AP built in, so you can connect to it, set up the Wi-Fi. It's got MQTT support, which I'm going to show you now. And that's publishing messages about what it's doing, what the state is, what the current consumption is, et cetera, et cetera. There's a set of stuff I don't really know about to do with home automation standards that it supports, time-based logging, and it does templates because there's loads and loads and loads of these little sort of white box smart automation devices out there. And it supports, you know, many of them have these ESPs in, and it supports loads of them. The community is just phenomenal. And so you can, one of the nice things about this is you can take the vanilla firmware, put it on the device, and then configure it for the specific device that you've got it on. So you don't have to get into all these like millions of different builds of things, which all gets a little bit complicated. So very, very cool. Now, if we go back, I've got this configured, you can see, to be an Avatar UK plug, which is what this is. And that's wiring up the GPIOs so that when I push the toggle button, the button goes on and off and it measures the right thing. It's got an inbuilt IC that's doing the sensing. Some cheaper models have really very rough current sensing implementation, which has to be calibrated. This is a little bit more expensive, but much better because it's got an IC that does that. It's really pretty accurate. So that's our configuration. If we go back, we can get information about the system, all the bits and bobs you might expect from a network connected device. And you can then look at the console, which is absolutely awesome. And it gives you all the logging and all the bits and pieces that the firmware in here is doing. And you can, you can type into that console and you can set it up. You can change the configuration. You can get the configuration. It's got scripting, you name it. Love it. I mean, I know this is sort of slightly off topic, but you can tell I really do love this. So this thing is now publishing these messages that I've just showed you on a topic. I won't sort of deep dive into how MQTT works as a protocol, but you have a topic space and you publish messages on those, and then anybody anywhere can connect up and receive those messages. So it really sort of decouples the logic of how you move information around. It's really powerful stuff. So we're publishing on VanSense, Tele, Tasmotor, bit of Mac ID, and then some sensor information, some state information. That's because we've got a little side project, another little plug, VanSense. We're putting these things into caravans and on campsites because they have a real problem with energy costs going up, knowing what each person is using on each pitch. So with this in place, we can now automatically report on, whether somebody's left the heater on all day or that kind of thing. So, we're getting to net zero, doing our little bit there, hopefully. So this is now publishing up. I can put a little command line tool in place, Mosquito sub, which is, Mosquito is a reference implementation, open source again, of the MQTT broker that a guy called Roger Light came up with. Brilliant piece of work. So you can grab that, you can install that. And in fact, that's what we did as a part of Ming. He's got some client tools that you can run up here. And what I'll just show you is that I'm connecting up to a host, which is my cloud-based MQTT server on a topic, which is everything in verbose mode. And that now is showing all the messages that are being pushed up from this device here that I have beside me. So, predominantly what we're interested in here is, what the ongoing current consumption is over time. But there's all sorts of other bits and pieces, and we can send commands down to it and control it if we want to turn the lights on and off just to confuse everybody in the house. We wouldn't do that. No, absolutely not. So Node-RED. Now Node-RED, as I say, it's basically a sort of logic wiring programming replacement graphical tool for all the things. And as you would imagine with the name Node, well, it's based on Node, so it's JavaScript. But it's also hugely pluggable with a big community of people written. And anything you think of, you want to tweet stuff, there's a plugin. You want to connect up to some service, if this, then that, there's a plugin. All the plugins are there. And if they aren't, you can write your own. So you have the power. Now, what I've done here, just in preparation, is I've taken one of the nodes that come pre-installed. I've installed some of my own too. And one of the nodes that we have here, if I can find it, is an MQTT input node. So that's going to be a client of our broker, our Mosquito broker. And I can configure that within Node. And I can say, okay, I want you to talk to this broker here on this particular topic and some other bits and pieces. And what will happen is that information on that topic will start to flow into that node. And then I can do things with it. So I've already, it's famous, here's one I made before. I've got one of these input nodes set up, and I've got that just directly wired to a debug node. And on the side here, you can see I'm getting these messages because the plug is publishing, I think, every 10 seconds or so. And it's publishing with a, I think it's a JSON payload format you can see here. And so that's just being represented, time, energy, totals, power, that type of thing. Now, the beauty of this as well is that you probably know that it can get really clunky trying to take bits of information out of payloads and move them around and extract strings and all this kind of thing. And that's where all this lovely sort of JSON and node comes in. So if I try, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but if I break that link and I make a function, all the information that you're seeing on the right-hand side is being represented. It's the string representation of the payload that's being passed along the nodes. So what I can do is I can change that payload to be part of the input payload, as it were, and I'm going to change it to be energy, I think, and let's say voltage, because that's actually a number. And what should happen is that the payload flows in, I do a transformation on it, I return the new message object back out. That's done. I'm going to wire these things up for the data flow. If I can manage to do that, I'm going to deploy that onto my server. Boom, that's done. And if I've done that right, hopefully the next time we get a publication from the device, what's going to happen? And I haven't done it right because I don't know what I'm doing. Cannot read properties of undefined message.payload. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm going to have to sidestep that. It's actually, I think, a string coming in. And what I need to do is convert it to JSON to change it out. But had that worked, you could see that it really can be very, very simple to do data manipulation visually and to move things through the flow. Now, that's a really simple example of, say, what we've got here, which some of the folks in the business did, which it terrifies me, quite frankly, but it's very nice. And what that's doing is taking in lots of information from the MQTT publications. It's extracting data. So, you know, here's the kind of thing I was talking about. It takes the device ID property out of the payload, does some magic on it to return something else. And then in our flows, what we're then doing is we're taking that data and we're moving it into a different node. And this, it's an MQTT out node. And what we want, if I move it a little bit further to right, there we are. What we're doing here is this flow has extracted power data from a given device, like the one we've got here. And with that data, it then goes to an InfluxDB node, output node, which inserts it into the database. So that's the next component. So we've had Mosquito, InfluxDB, Mosquito, Node-RED, now InfluxDB for the data storage. And that's just putting all of these data points into our database, and that then can be manipulated using, you know, whatever particular InfluxDB commands you want. And so we're building up that body of knowledge over time. We can average over buckets for what's happened in an hour or a day or the past 3 months and do all that cool stuff. So we've now got the data being delivered to us in an assured manner. We're able to manipulate it very, very easily, and we can store it. So that's great. Last part of this that we now need, we want to look at this because we don't just look at numbers all over the place. So what can we do? Well, we can go to Grafana, if I can find that here. Which one is this? Yeah, so this is a little Grafana dashboard. I guess you've just been sort of looking at all of this stuff. And apologies again if I sort of say, you know, repeat. But what we've got is a little system where we've got multiple different devices. There's not a lot of data in here at the minute, but each of these is doing an InfluxDB query on all the data that's relevant to a particular device with a particular MAC address. This is the smart plug that we've got here, and you can see with this plug, it's given us a sort of, you know, daily usage and what that actually is costing. And then over, you know, time, what the current and the voltage is looking like as people turn things on and turn things off. And we've been having fun with that, looking at usage. I mean, my dad has a caravan. He takes this thing with him. I can tell when he arrives because the heater goes on. I can tell when he's go out. It's all very, very scary. Big brother is watching you. But he also knows what it's costing him, which is what he cares about. So that's interesting. And that's really the core of what we were doing with the beginnings of this Ming stack to enable moving data into the cloud and then doing things with it. And of course, you can also, as well as visualizing the data using Node-RED, you can push it out of nodes into other places. You know, for example, we use some cool stuff with Google Sheets, where you've got a Google Sheet, you publish that endpoint onto the interwebs, and that has a little get or post handler. And then you can push out of Node-RED into the Google Sheet, and then line upon line of your data will just appear. And anybody, you know, everybody loves their sheets, their Excel, don't they? So anybody can jump into that and start playing with that and visualizing and analyzing the data. So I won't do that now, but that's kind of a nice thing that we like. Similarly, what we came across, and this is like sort of my limited understanding of Grafana, but when we are running systems, so say containers within Balena or Balena platforms, we wanted to sort of see what the characteristics of those systems are. So load, usage, file system, all that kind of thing. And we came across this stuff, Prometheus, of course, again, as ever, open source. And we got a Prometheus exporter on one of our broker boxes, which is telling us what the load is, what the downtime is, what the connectivity is. And that's plugging into Grafana, giving us a lovely little Grafana dashboard for you know, to tell when things are broken. Now what's the next tab? I can make it. Oh, what's going on here? I'm on it, that's why. Yeah, so we haven't quite got around to integrating all of this stuff that's in the GitHub repo for Ming. It's all containerized, and you can look at the Docker Compose files for this and the individual components, and you can see Mosquito, Node-RED, Grafana, InfluxDB. There's some other bits and pieces that people have been adding in as they've been playing with this too. There's some Home Assist stuff, I guess. I don't really know what's going on with that. And then what we've been looking at is moving this into being a published Balena block on the balenaHub. We got a couple so far. We've got that Prometheus exporter that I was talking about, and some of the conversations that we've had are that when you're running something like this, a stack with multiple components and multiple containers, you might need to access over different TCP ports or UDP or whatever, and the ability to remote into a machine to be able to get access to that stuff is quite useful. Not entirely sure where things are with that now, Mark, but from way back when, we were looking at doing what we've called the reverse proxy using traffic, and that sort of lets you go, you know, URL to my remote device through Balena, and then you know, part of the URL, so page on a website, gets redirected by traffic internally to a container on whatever that port is, so you can get access to the different bits and pieces. So if I want to look at Grafana and Node-RED, I can route through to that and do that. So we found that quite useful. Hopefully, you know, we can sort of integrate that with whatever great work is going on there at present. So that's kind of most of that. Very quick, if you're still awake, plug for something else that we're working on, which uses all of this, which is the Cattle Companion. The Cattle Companion, Nero file, wherever you are. The idea is that, you know, we all live far away from each other. Maybe your mom and dad are in their house and you're in your house, or your kids are off at college. But my mom, she always has a cup of tea in the morning. And I know when she's having that cup of tea because she puts the kettle on and that signals through this smart plug. And that goes through our stack. And then I have a little kettle with a light on, a model kettle on my kitchen table. And when I stagger out into the kitchen in the morning for my cup of coffee, if it's gone green, I know she's up and she's okay and she's happy. And if later on in the day it hasn't gone green, and say by about 10 o'clock it goes red, and I think, oh, you know, well, what's going on here? So I give her a call, see that she's okay and she's gone off somewhere, or she's drinking wine in the morning instead of tea. So this leverages what we're doing with that technology, with IoT sensors, with containerization, with the cloud, with Ming, and hopefully that was of some interest. And that's me done.
Great. This is awesome. Yeah, if you drink wine in the morning, yeah, it's good to let it know to your children. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Questions for Alex, please.
Okay.
Actually, meanwhile you were speaking, Alex, well, we have tons of Alex today here. So Alex S. ask, I have a question related with Balena. Is there any possibility to use preload and link the Balena application to the Open Balena? I'm trying to use preload and I have online devices available. Yeah, so the best might be to, yeah, let us know what you tried and what errors did you get. We have another Alex actually, who asked, yeah, how did you link your Balena application to the Balena repository. Okay. Okay. You are the same, Alex. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Maybe this is out of the scope of this. So happy to, yeah, please, can you put this question on the forums.balena.io so we can jump and help you? So for people who don't know, we do support. Everybody does support. Lizzie, me, CTO, everyone. So yeah, please add your questions on the forums maybe, and we can help you as soon as possible. Feel free to ping me on the forums. But yeah, that should work. So that then there shouldn't be any problem to use preload on OpenBalena. Sorry for that. Yeah, I really love Ming, actually. I have to be super honest. Actually, last week I was in Amsterdam at the Things conference, and one of the demos that we were showing is how to create all the LoRaWAN stack together on one embedded device to create a private LoRaWAN network. But then adding extra containers like InfluxDB, Node-RED, and Grafana, just to visualize everything that all the information from the nodes coming from
I
the
love this,
network.
you know, I think it's great. I think that we all have our interests and we all have, you know, the problem that we're trying to solve. And again, you know, what I like about the way Balena Blocks is going is you're enabling us to just kind of pull it in and it just works, you know, and I don't have to do that. I can get on with what I'm trying to do here, which I love, you know, and then I suddenly discover well, I've got my system here. I want to start doing some LoRa stuff now, you know, so I can pull that block in too, and I can get some gateway devices together. Fantastic. Love it.
And both it works. Yeah. So that's, yeah, you completely understood the goals of the blocks, etc. Yeah, so Alex S, sorry, he wants to know how you connect the power outlet adapter to the dashboard. Yeah, you use the Tasmota, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yes. So what's happening is Tasmota is running in here. This has got an implementation of this MQTT protocol, which is a particular way of sending information over the wire, and that's flowing into the Mosquito broker, and hence going through into Node-RED and then into the Grafana dashboard. And it's pretty easy to set up, really.
Internet connection. It's Wi-Fi, right?
It's Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's Wi-Fi.
With MQTT.
Which perhaps gives me an opportunity for the third and absolutely last plug for what we're up to here. But I'm super excited. I think I may have told you this, Mark, but I'm super excited because last week we won an Innovate UK competition for some backing and some help with the next generation of this, because whilst these are pretty, you know, you pop onto Amazon or wherever, you'll see a lot of these things. I will actually warn you, they all look basically the same, but they have different chips inside. So if you want to run Esperna or Tasmota, you've got to be really sure it's got an ESP in it, which more and more they don't, the newer ones don't. And also the people who make this are Toya. It's basically white box to a load of different OEMs. And Toya, don't ask me why, they're not very keen on people replacing their firmware. And the older firmware, there's a hack called Toya Convert, which allows you to take their stuff off and put what you want on. And they fixed the weakness, unfortunately. So again, newer firmwares you cannot break out of. You have to be a little bit careful of that. We have plugs on the Kettle Companion site preloaded with Tasmota, which you can take if you want one that will work. There's another manufacturer called Athom, ATHOM, based in China, which provides them with Tasmota on. And you know, you will know that will work. That's Wi-Fi only, as we say. And we've had a lot of feedback from people, and we know ourselves that it's such a pain to connect to the Wi-Fi, you got the AP, the SSID, and a password, and it goes on, it doesn't work, you don't know why, and it's up, it's down, it's all over the place, it's a real faff. and particularly with the kind of things we're doing, where we're trying to target older people and people who don't really care about the tech. You know, it's the service that matters. So a lot of people have said to us, we don't want all that faff, we want a cellular device. So what we're now doing, and where we won this bid, which was really exciting, is we're creating our own hardware for this, which has got a cellular modem in it with NB-IoT, Cat-M1 with a fallback to 2G. So it'll basically operate pretty much anywhere. And the concept is that it'll be like this, and you just plug it in and the SIM will be online. It's an eSIM, don't even have SIMs anymore. You go online and it'll start publishing data, and you can just get on with doing what you want. So, you know, watch this space. Hopefully in 6 months' time, we'll have something interesting to show there.
You need to check Blues Wireless.
Sorry?
You need to check a company called Blues Wireless.
Yes. Is that the IO node? Yeah.
Say again.
Is that the IO node? I know the people from Blues quite well. I like this stuff.
Node Hub. No, Node card. Yeah, let's talk about
you got a range.
also.
You got a Pi carrier and an ESP carrier and all that stuff. They got
indeed. Yeah,
really cool stuff. I particularly love the environmental sensor box. It's really, really, really nice. Yeah.
So it mentions Alex is asking more questions about the Wi-Fi. So if you add it manually using Wi-Fi Connect from Balena or Wi-Fi or kind, or there is this hotspot mode where you can connect with a phone. Can you maybe explain?
Yeah. So it's as. Yeah. So it's as.
Or you just code it on the source code.
There's a load of different. I mean, I know it's sort of sidetracking sideways. Apologies for that, but
no problem.
But the film is really configurable, and it has a number of different connection strategies. If you go to the Tasmota website, it's really comprehensive documentation. And the two main connection strategies I use, one is that you, there's a Wi-Fi manager strategy where it tries, if it's configured to connect to, I think 2 or maybe 4 access points, it will try. And if it can't connect, then it will go into an AP mode. It will come up as its own SSID, and then you can go in and you'll get a page where you can configure the SSID and password that you want, just sort of standard as with Balena, as Balena support. And then when that's configured, it will go off and it will just sort of keep trying to maintain that connection. And when it can't, it'll drop back into AP mode. But I think we all have this problem. You know, it can be a bit of a pain because you do get outages and you don't want devices popping into AP mode and sitting there. I think this thing will like sit for about 60 seconds and then cycle around. But if you don't like that, you can change the connection strategy so that it will only retry and always then try to maintain that connection to whatever you've configured it to. You can set that through the console. I haven't mentioned there's an HTTP API you can use, or over MQTT. And then, of course, the next question is, well, what happens if that goes wrong, which it has. And again, the Tasmota people got there way before I even thought of the problem. And they've got this like really cool kind of emergency recovery thing where you take it out and put it in 7 times and it resets to defaults and it goes into AP mode, and then you can set it all up again. So hopefully that helps.
Right. Actually, just to clarify, the demo that you showed today, it's not running on Balena, right? It's running on your cloud.
To all intents and purposes, it would be running on a Raspberry Pi if I'd had time to set it up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
right.
Of course.
My apologies. But yeah, we've had one of the very many Raspberry Pis we've got lying around here, sitting on the wall, running all of this very happily for months. And we had an SD card in it. And we didn't configure the database to remove old data, and we just left it running to see how long it'd go before it fell over. And we'd all forgotten about it 6 to 8 months or something before it had any kind of problem at all. So yeah, it all just sort of deploys down to a Raspberry Pi, containerized, and off you go.
So as a compromise, next week we will try to have Ming on balenaHub, so anyone can just deploy Ming in one click and start.
That's what we need. And apologies that I didn't get there with that, Mark. That was my intention. But...
No problem at all. Yeah, I see Grog Beer. Happy for that. Yeah, happy to get your contribution as well there, Grog Beer. More questions, please, for Mikhail and Alex. I think it was great to have you both. So as I explained at the beginning or in the middle, so I wanted to have like a super advanced usage of Grafana. And then, yeah, if someone wants, okay, what is Grafana? How can I start with Balena? So yeah, we will have Ming there ready to help IoT embedded developers, as we had as web developers, LAMP, no, like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Actually, I know it as a PHP. I'm not sure if there is something Perl, Python, but yeah.
It's Perl, wasn't there? Some people say it's Perl, I think, don't they? Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we hope that this can help us help some of the web developers with LAMP. And if you have no more questions, I think we are good. I don't know, Mikhail, if you have any questions, any comment, anything to add.
No, it was great presentation by Alex. Yes, as I mentioned, there is a some use cases like using Prometheus in Grafana, right, which what everybody is doing just to show the data. But at the same time, you can add interactivity to it, right? Like we showed, just instead of using separate applications to configure Node-RED, right, to do different things with different interfaces, you can do everything in Grafana, and the user experience is much better, right? When you can visualize your data and change anything in the Grafana.
Mikhail, so again, I'm actually probably going to go for a pint now, but tomorrow I'm going to go and look at the recording of this, because that's the big, for me, that's what we had, you know, trying to do, being kind of noobs at Grafana. And you can see what we've got set up. I mean, it's like really clunky, like pushing the buttons to try and change things around. And it was really missing that interactivity for us. So for me, I mean, that's the next thing I need to go and experiment with, isn't it? And see if we can get your stuff built into that. That would be great.
Sure. I mentioned there are plugins like a data manipulation plugins and different plugins in a Grafana by the community, where you can create with buttons or provide your parameters in your post request, right? And you can configure it, you change it. And this is how I see a community really love this data manipulation plugin. Yeah, and they're doing amazing stuff with it. And your customers can do everything, right? They see how your device behaves, see what it's doing, right? You change it directly, like different parameters in it, and you see how behavior of device change. That's amazing.
I think it is, you know, and even sort of putting the commercial hat on again, so important, you know, just so I think one of the things I've seen a lot over the years is that we focus on we're trying to do a job, we're trying to put functionality into an IoT device, we deploy that stuff. And maybe we haven't thought that this now has a lifetime, you know, this is maybe out in the field for 10 years and it's doing things. And it's after the event, we kind of say, well, what's actually happening? You know, what's it doing? How's it behaving? How do we look at that? How do we preemptively know if there's going to be a problem next month? And all of that data visualization and manipulation and looking at different presentations seems to me just incredibly useful.
Right. And based on any characteristic you collect using Prometheus, you can create machine learning, right? Just to see how it's going to behave in a month or year.
When is the washing machine going to fail? And I can send the guy out to the house to say, hey, your washing machine's going to fail tomorrow. So we thought we'd fix the component for you because, you know, we're nice people. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. And there are so many interesting use cases I hear from the community about the energy consumption, because now, like you show it, everybody wants to see how much they use energy, how they go into the grid, when the EV car charge, and the same electric companies, they flag these events. It's great, and you can do everything in Grafana.
Absolutely, I think that's huge, you know. And just to sort of throw another one in that they've been talking about here, what happens when, you know, we've all got our EVs, and then I'm going around to Mark's house, and he lets me charge my EV at his house. Well, I mean, I can't steal all his electricity. How do I know what I've used and say, hey, you know, it's Monzo that it cost you. All these things are sort of coming, aren't they? You know, and that's all about how we capture that IoT data and then move it around and deal with it. It's interesting times. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's very important as well not to have different system for all the environment, for all the different devices, right? When you can see this complex system view of everything at the same time.
Absolutely. Very difficult, you know, the fragmentation problem, and everybody's got their own silos, and yeah, really, yeah. I don't
And
know.
reinventing the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is.
Over and over again. Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for open source.
Yeah, take a look at the presentation. If you have any questions, Alex, how to
Brilliant. I look
incorporate
forward to
an application.
continuing the chat with you, Mikhail. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, data manipulation is open source as well. There is a GitHub repository. Try it out. See if it works. Ask questions.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome. And Nahal actually was interesting a message in the chat saying, I'm a beginner and I really don't know about Majid. How can I learn more? So recommendation is just send this message on the forums, and we will help you to get started. And we will publish Ming next week. So we'll keep you updated there.
And, you know, PRs gratefully received. If anybody wants to contribute,
Yeah, sure.
do things with it, talk about it, correct problems, tell me what's wrong. That'd be great. That'd be really appreciated.
All right. So if there are no more questions, yeah. See you next balena Meetup. Will be last Tuesday of October, if I'm not wrong. Not sure if it's already scheduled, but yeah, it will. If not, thank you very much. See you next Meetup.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us.